I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Assisi. Dr. Assisi was born in the city of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, but he's been living in the United States since his youth. And he currently lives in San Diego with his family. His beautiful wife, Nicole, and his son, David, and very soon to welcome their new baby boy, right? He's on his way. So Dr. Assisi holds a PhD in education, and he works in the area of public school administration, charter schools administration, and he's been very I'm going to say, what is the word?
Supportive?
Supportive, thank you. Extremely supportive of our group here in Chicago and our work, the Spiritist work here in Illinois. Dr. Assisi visited us a few times already, many times, I think, right, in these past 10 years, which we are very grateful for. And Dr. Assisi is a Spiritist speaker. He travels the entire country, giving talks in Spiritism and also internationally. So it's with a great joy and gratitude that we welcome Dr. Assisi once again. Thank you, Dr. Assisi.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. 10 years, people. Incredible, right? And we're going to have a day filled with a lot of fun, a lot of learning, a lot of connections, time to connect with each other, and hopefully we will also have the opportunity to go down memory lane and take stock of all the wonderful things that have happened in this past 10 years because of you. Yes, because of you. That's what it's all about today. It's about celebrating you and celebrating the fact that you have taken the time to come together and build the Spirit Society of Chicago. It's a wonderful, wonderful milestone. One that we are going to remember throughout the day, and one that we're going to discuss and have conversations about in general. So I'm looking forward to it. And as we build up for the day, I figured we can have more of a conversation too and start by trying to remember what it is to build a Spiritist group, what a Spiritist group is. And as we take stock, maybe our goal could be to zoom out a little bit for our present moment and just take it all in. Because sometimes during the week, we go into automatic pilot and we remember that, oh, Monday I got to go to the group, or Wednesday, or Thursday, or Saturday, or what have you. And sometimes if we're not cautious, because life happens, we lose sight of what it is to be part of a society like this, of a new group like this. And I would argue that a Spiritist group is a little miracle on earth. It's an incredible thing that is done, that takes place quietly and serenely, but nevertheless extremely beautifully. And sometimes we forget that. So we hope to awaken you that sense today by arguing and remembering you that Spiritist groups are physical manifestations of a spiritual idea. As we study in Spiritism, there's more than meets the eye. And in a Spiritist group, the same is also true. So hopefully you bear with us. Along the way, we're going to try to make it not that boring. And we'll survive, because we always do. Does it make sense so far? Well, I wanted to start by evoking the kindness of our spiritual mentors and guides who are always with us, to remember our lineage, so to speak, our spiritual lineage, so to speak. What do I say by that? Because if you really zoom out into big history, we can kind of, well, at least I will, we can kind of say that there was, in our history as a humanity, there was darkness. And we were just crawling in the dark, trying to make sense of things. And all of a sudden, as if by divine intervention, there was a flash of brilliant, warm light that came and blinded us. And it was gone. And for that brief second, as we remained shocked, not knowing what was happened, we also realized that we could see in the dark. And we know where things were, and now we found ourselves again without perfect vision. And for me, that is the symbolic passage of Jesus on earth. The greatest spirit that we have ever been acquainted with on the globe came to shed some light and leave us with a better understanding of who we were, who we are, and where we were. And to this day, we try to make sense of the world, remembering that light that we once saw. When things were made more clear, they made more sense, and everything seemed to click and be okay. But because we find oftentimes ourselves in the dark, still trying to make sense of where the chair and the table are so that we don't hit our shin, as we often do at night when we wake up, it does us good to remember that we know what the place looks like. We just forget sometimes. We have already seen what the light can do. And the answer for our prayers is ourselves. That we are what we are hoping for. That we can make a difference. And the symbolic example of the Christ is a really great one in many different ways, in a poetic way, because it brings us the cross. And it's a cross of transformation. Because if we remember our history a little bit, the act of being crucified back in Jesus' time was one of really trying to humiliate the crucified. It was a fate reserved for the thieves, for the worst possible kind of people. So the cross did not have a good meaning whatsoever. But because he who comes and shows us the light and transforms absolutely everything, the cross now for us is a symbol of hope, is a symbol of that which is most powerful and elevated. Because the divine teachings, when they come into our world, they transform us in such a way that even that which seems the most horrible and unfortunate event becomes the most beautiful, sublime moment of transformation. So, we call on that idea of the cross to hearken us back to those times and brings us forward to today so that we can understand that we are heirs to that idea, that we too are trying to make our cross in the world, and that the Spiritist group is a physical manifestation of that idea. Getting abstract, getting confusing, allow me to unfold things a little bit more. In a cross, we have two different vertices. We have a horizontal one, and we have a vertical one. And it's a beautiful symbolism of two things. The spiritual, that takes us from earth to above, and of the world itself, that takes us to connect with each other. So as the spiritual goes up and is divine and represents the intangible, the horizontal, the physical, really in a way represents the human, the tangible. And it's no surprise then that the Christ was placed in the middle as the perfect connection between the divine and the human, the intangible and the physical. because he has come to teach us the way to overcome our perception that the only thing that exists is the physical, and reminds us that our nature is spiritual and that we are immortal beings. And as he does that, he leaves us with this beautiful idea that we must connect the two things to be fully realized, that we must connect these two different parts of our existence to be truly happy and step into our own shoes and be that which we're meant to be. Because if we live only with spiritual eyes while we're here on earth, it might not work because we have physical needs. And if we live only with physical eyes, well, you know where that leads us. It leads us to a world that doesn't connect with each other, that doesn't think of higher things, and that thirsts for meaning. And so, as we bring both together, we remain fully balanced, fully happy. Now, all right, Dan, that's a lot of abstract thinking, and let's get more real a little bit. Well, when we talk about the Spiritist group, I really want to visit three things: the people, the place, and the purpose. The three P's that I call from the Spiritist group. And I hope that you will indulge for a couple of more minutes as we go through those ideas and try to zoom out a little bit from the fact that we think oftentimes of the Spiritist group as the physical place that we go to at a certain hour a week to do a certain thing before we go home and go about our lives. Are you with me so far? All right. So let's do that. Let's start with our people. I would argue that all of us that come to a Spiritist group and work and volunteer, we are in the business of people. That's what we do. So when we come to the Spiritist group and we think of the Spiritist group as just a physical place, we might have missed a big chunk of the meaning. Because what we really are in the business of, if you think about it, the reason this place exists, the reason why this physical place was manifested and made possible is to help people, is to help souls, incarnate spirits. Right? And by the way, congratulations on the space. Yes? I mean, the brick, the flower, I'm kind of jealous. I won't lie to you. It's pretty good. I love it. So good job doing it in style. Congratulations on the new room, on the expansion. That's some amazing accomplishments that sometimes we forget. So it's good for us to celebrate that as well. But all that is meant so that people could be here, so that you could be here. Right? Thank you. And why is that? Because fundamentally, our job is to take everyone who comes in, and they generally come in for one or two reasons. Either people are in pain and they want to understand what's happening and need help, or because they have already realized that there's something more than the physical and they want knowledge. And if I were to do an estimation, the vast majority is the first case. We come here because something is off, we're hurting, and we feel like this place, this people could help us. And following that beautiful example of transformation of the Christ, the goal of the Spiritist Center, the Spiritist group, the Spiritist Society, is to transform and sublimate that. It's to change and empower people so that as we come in with our doubts, with our pains, with our ailments, with our illnesses of the soul, that we then make that into a beautiful cocoon moment and change from people who come in pain to people who have known or learned how to manage their pain and are willing to help others manage their pain. Because in managing other people's pain, sometimes we learn how to treat ours. And in knowing how to treat ours, sometimes we gain understanding on how to help others. It's a beautiful symbiotic relationship where to be our full selves, we must recognize the existence of others. So we focus on ourselves by focusing on others. It's a poetic and contradictive statement, but it makes sense. And if we come in trying to seek and understand knowledge, which is very important for us in Spiritism, that we get ourselves to a position where we can share our knowledge and understanding with other people. Because the knowledge that Spiritism brings, it's something, at the risk of sounding corny, out of this world. Right? It's a transformative mind shift, I should say. I just said a really bad word by mistake there. Let's do it again. Mind shift. It's an incredible mind shift that has the power to transform everything, because when we change the way we look at the world changes. It's still the same world, but it's different. Right? So the first P for us is to treat the people. So the invitation of the moment is for us to realize that we need to think of the Spiritist group not of the beautiful place with the beautiful walls and the beautiful plant and also the wonderful food, by the way. Right? But to the people that are here. We are here for the people. We're here for you. You are here also in time when you're ready for others. Are you with me so far? That's the first P. Second P, place. It's not just our physical place, which is obviously very important, because a beautiful physical place helps us get into the right mind shift and mindset. Right? When you see beautiful things, you relax, you open up. You're less worried about clutter and all the psychological impacts that it may have on you, and you open yourself up to all those considerations that we are talking about. And there's also a figurative place where we're also trying to find our place in the greater plan when we come here. We come here to find, where is it that I belong in the world? What is my purpose? There's also our place, our figurative place in the universe, right? And the Spiritist group is, yes, a physical place, and yes, it has also this aspect of training grounds, right? Because we come here in an atmosphere that is a microcosm of the world outside, but a lot safer. We come here to deal with a reduced number of people compared to the world outside, and we know that the people who come here, they come because they want to help themselves. They want to better themselves. They're willing to try to make a difference in their own lives. And it's a lot easier to work on ourselves when we are in an environment where we know that everybody is willing and able to work on themselves too. So it's a more forgiving place. It's a more accepting place. And yet sometimes it's hard. And yet sometimes we rub against each other. Because we're still working on ourselves, and we work things a certain way, and when somebody else doesn't do it, we're like, why did so-and-so come in and did not say hi to me? Clearly they don't love me. Right? We make these stories in our heads. Oh, you left, but you know it's true. Right? Somebody comes in, doesn't look at you, you're like, you didn't even talk to me. You don't like me. Right? And then the question that always remains is, why didn't you go talk to them? Right? Why is it that we're still waiting for people to come talk to us as opposed to asking them? And then sometimes, true story, you go ask people and say, hey, I noticed you came in and you didn't talk to me. Are we okay? Did I say something? Like, no, my dad passed last night. And I'm really sad. You're like, ooh. Here I was thinking about my own tiny world of how somebody maybe didn't like, and I failed to recognize that actually they were trapped in a much bigger problem than I was. So get to know each other. Build this community in training grounds. So the horizontal aspect, the physical aspect of the Spiritist group is exceedingly important because it allows us the space to interact with each other. And without interacting with each other, we cannot learn. Learning is a social experiment. It's a social experience. It has to take place in the interchange of experiences and ideas with people, right? And then the spiritual part of this is that as we do this training grounds, we have our own physical community that we build, and we have our own activities where we bake for Jesus. I joke, but we come together, we enjoy social time, and really just get to know each other, just get to be in each other's company. And if we are paying attention, we begin to understand that we are forming a community here, becoming part of our lives, but there's also a greater community. We realize all of a sudden that as we build community here, there is a spiritual community that supports us. And that we're also part of other greater communities, other Spiritist groups. You are a group here in Chicago, but your community extends beyond the city limits. It goes to the Spiritist Society of Illinois, a sister organization, and it goes farther to Iowa. It goes to Milwaukee. As we make these relationships, we begin to see that they grow, not only individually, but as a community too. And so, as a place, as a Spirit Society, we start to connect the physical place as a training grounds to the fact that we are a simple community here who's part of a larger community. And eventually we'll get to the point where we are the ultimate community of humanity. But still a ways away. That's okay. Right? But we work on enlarging our circle. So it's important for us to find our place in the bigger realm of things. And know that we're not alone. Because being part of a community mandates necessarily that we are aware that although we are individuals, we are never alone. And we got to catch ourselves so that we're not lonely even when we're not alone. Right? But that's an individual work. But are you with me so far? All right. All right, symbolic. But let's talk a little bit more about this particular place. Let's talk about this group. Because sometimes we think about all these things and say, oh, that's nice, but, you know, really, are we really? Because we all have doubts, right? We all have those moments. We're like, But so let's take stock here of the invisible impact of this community of do-gooders, right? So I did some back-of-the-napkin calculations. And I might need your help because it might be off. But here's what I know about you guys. Here's the activities that you have, right? So you have, in terms of study sessions, on Wednesdays, you have a book study club in Portuguese, you have public talks, and you have a mediumship study group. Is that correct? On Saturdays, in English, you have a book study club, and you have public talks. Is that also right? And then you also provide passes on Wednesdays and Saturdays, right, matching these things. And then you also have the practice of mediumship on Mondays, right? And there are things here that are not calculated, right? But if you think about it, this simple group of people who don't get paid to be here are able to put together 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 activities that take place every week in, look at that, Wednesdays and Saturdays and Mondays, 3 days out of the week. That in itself is sort of a miracle, isn't it? Nobody's paid, yet 8 activities happen. Did it start with 8 activities? No, right? It never starts with 8 activities. It starts with one activity that happens maybe like once a month or once every 15 days. And then people come together and grow. And so you guys started with something every 2 weeks. And now it's something that happened 3 days a week in 8 different activities. It's the beginning of poetry, isn't it? But it doesn't stop there. Wait, if you call in the next 10 minutes, you also get divine accounting. Follow me on this one really quickly. I know that this might be a little different than we're used to, and this is not always the most important, but follow my thinking, and hopefully this will lead us to a place where we realize our impact a little bit more closely. The book study club, right? It's approximately 9 people. Does that sound right? Thereabouts. And I'm calculating that's 50 weeks of activities. There's 52 weeks in the year. I'm taking 2 off because Christmas, whatever, and it's a round number. I like the round numbers. Deal with it, right? That means that 9 people, 1 hour a week at the end of a year, it's 450 hours of instruction, right? Just on that activity. If we do the same to the public talks, we have an average of 12 people thereabouts. Does that sound right? Same 50 weeks, and that's another 600 hours of learning and teaching happening. Oh, these numbers are getting large. Oh, wait. The mediumship study group also has 9 people, and it meets 50 times a week, but actually studies for 2 hours. So that group actually has 900 hours of self-learning taking place a year. Ooh, we like big numbers, don't we? Right? All right, so let's keep going here. On Saturdays, the same takes place, and we have 15 people, 50 weeks a year, 750 hours of learning taking place. Public talks, 22 people, another 1,100 hours of learning taking place a week. Passes, we have about 12 people there, we said, right? On that day, 600 passes, right? And on Saturday, we have 22 people, so it's 1,100 passes, right? And here's another piece that sometimes we forget because we're not always fully aware of all the activities that take place in a Spiritist group. There's also a mediumship practice group that helps discarnates make sense of who they are and where they are and what they ought to do. And if that meeting is helping 3 spirits a week for 50 weeks, that's 150 spirits at the end of the year. How many people fit in this room? 35. Huh? 35? Imagine 9 or 10 rooms of this. This is the number of spirits that are helped every year. Now, that's conservatively, and I'll tell you why. Because when we are enlightened, when we help ourselves or we help others, we help those who are around us too. Right? When somebody that you know is struggling and they get help and get better, you feel better too. So there is an echo effect here that we're not calculating. But let me summarize this briefly to you one more time so we take perspective here. There's 3,800 hours of study made possible every single year because of you, unpaid volunteers who are willing to dedicate your time and effort to be here. To put that into context a little bit more, because sometimes these numbers, I get 3,800, wow, it's a big number, but what does that mean? If this were like a business and you ran 8 hours a day, right? And one person came to get tutoring individually, like learn 1 hour a day. If we divide all these hours by 8, right? It would be at 475 business days of learning taking place here in a year. Does that make sense? So if you put 8 hours a day of learning, right, and call it a business day, what you guys do in a year is provide the equivalent of 475 days of instruction. So in a year, you pack more than a year's worth. Isn't that incredible? It's almost a year and a half. It's pretty awesome. Okay, 1,700 passes. And we know the passes are meant to help reestablish ourselves, help us balance our energies, right, and refocus. That's 2 minutes a pass. That's roughly 60 hours of passes. That's, if we're business days again, we're talking about a week and a half of non-stop passes every 2 minutes if you never went to the bathroom. in between, right? Isn't that incredible? I think it's incredible. If you don't think it's incredible, please don't say. Don't ruin my moment, right? And then 150 spirits helps, like I said, but way more. But way more, right? But way more because we're not counting the echo effect. We're not counting here the people who also came in and were helped during a moment of celebration, of socializing, because you guys also have social activities which are important. You also have coffee with Kardec, I hear, which leads me to believe that Kardec probably drinks decaf, because you guys have so much coffee that if he's having coffee all the time, he'll be like wired, right? And you have that twice, basically, right, a week. And we're going to have what I presume, just based out of experience, I predict, will be a pretty delicious food today as well. And during those moments, you get to be with each other. And sometimes we nourish our souls, too, for those interactions, right? Just sharing, talking to people. So that's not accounted in here. And what's also not accounted in here are two other things that are very important. Fraternal assistance, which are the people that look for the group, for help, and just to talk to somebody. And we all need it, right? And we didn't count it here because, I don't know. If you want to, is it one person a week? Is it two people? I don't know. But it's consequential. And if you think about it again one more time, about the fact that whenever one person's helped that family, that group of people around them, you can start to see that your footprint, your spiritual footprint, is bigger than you give yourself credit for. That's not to count, for instance, on in our meetings, the discarnates, who are also here with us, learning, healing themselves, recuperating, studying. That is just a one-sided picture. And on the other side, the numbers are larger. We learn through our studies that the numbers are larger on the other side, because on the other side, there is also the invisible side of our group that we forget. They who guide us, they who make this idea possible by helping us along the way. So we have at least one spiritual mentor benefactor that sees the entire work of the group. We generally have ones that oversee each different activity, because different activities have different purposes. They themselves have assistants. They themselves have people who come in for specific reasons during time. Sometimes we call a specialist, right? Like we need in medicine. You need a consult from a specialist. So when you're studying, Andrea Lewis' book, and you're talking about mediumship or passes or whatever it is, they might bring some folks who are extra special in that area to help that lesson take place, because it doesn't only take place to those who are here, but those who are also learning with us. Because there's more of them than it is of us. And we should start to get comfortable with that idea, because that's what we learn. That's what Spiritism is. It's opening our eyes to the spiritual world. We cannot have Spiritism without spirits. And what Spiritism does to us is take away this fear that we have of spirits. Because we fear that which we do not know, that we do not understand. But once we understand that the spirits are nothing but us, without a physical body, there's nothing to fear. We can respect that. We can be aware of it. We understand that it can affect us, but it's not something for us to fear. Because Spiritism, through our studies, takes away this mystical layer that we have created in our minds over many incarnations, who knows, and shows us clearly that the world is under control, that God guides us even in the darkest moments, and that we are going to be okay. And now we're given the ability to understand that in such a manner that we can actually interact with the spiritual world. The reason we are here in a Spiritist group is because Spiritism started, and Spiritism is the interaction between the two planes of the world, of the universe. And the DNA of Spiritism is one of inquiry. Spiritism started with an investigation of what's happening. And that's what we come to do here too, is to investigate what's happening in our lives. What is it that are doing? Which leads us to the third P, purpose. If we work with people to find our place, we also want them to find their purpose. We also want to empower them to find their place in the creation. And we bring that all together as we connect with ourselves, because as we begin to do all these things that we were talking about, we start to connect with ourselves and re-understand who we are. And for us to lead with our whole selves, we need to be whole ourselves. And so the process of doing all of this helps us figure out who we are. In the beginning, it doesn't look so great. I think all of us have gone through this, right? We start to look into ourselves and who we really are when we're able to put the veil away for a little bit. Like, oh, I do things that I didn't know I did. I'm not a very nice person. You're great. Just the way you are. God made you. And then you start to realize that you can work on things and you're like, you know what? I'm doing a couple of things. But we don't stop to think of how much we have changed. We only look at who we are right now. Now look back 10 years ago, who were you compared to who you are today? You have changed. You have changed for the better, because that is the law. And in part, that was accelerated because you had a training grounds like this one to change in. So as you connect with yourself, you connect with other people. And as you acquire more knowledge, which is the cornerstone of Spiritism, you also learn how to handle your emotions. We re-educate our minds. And then we make the connection, the horizontal connection between ourselves and others, as we force ourselves to move from the simple knowledge. All right, maybe I should press the right button. That always helps. There you go. So as we connect with others, we make this transition from just knowledge to educating our emotions. But let's not be mistaken here too. The importance of studying is fundamental to what we do. Again, the core, the DNA of Spiritism is investigation. It would not have happened if Kardec did not stop to investigate what was happening to those turning tables. If he didn't keep asking questions and trying to make sense of the world that was around him, that other people thought it was entertaining, that other people thought it was impossible, that other people didn't want to engage with. He stopped and asked questions because he could not deny that something was happening. And that is a beautiful recipe for ourselves. There's something happening with us. There's something in our hearts or in our souls that bring us here. Because we know somehow, consciously, like a divine spark within us, shakes us up and says, there is more to life. I might not know what my purpose is, but there's something more than just what I'm doing. There's something more than waking up in the morning and going to work and paying my bills. We begin to see that in the relationships we have with others, but as we fully come into the realization that we're immortal spirits, it begins to hit us, and we begin to feel a fulfillment and know that we are meant for greater things. And then we start to change. But what does it take to do all this? Dan, you're putting in unreasonable expectations. I can never do that. I can never change my life and the life of others and impact 38 hours of work and 100. I can't do that. It's just too much for me. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the skill. I hear that all the time. I don't know where to start. Well, we've got the recipe for us. What are the requirements to start to do all of this, to start to transform ourselves? We go to the Spirit's book. We look at the question 886, and the Spirits tell us that when they say, what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? What is it to work for others as the supreme representation of the divine on earth understood it? Tell us what the really cool people do and how they've done it so that we can model and copy that too. And the Spirits, in a very annoying way, describe it in 3 sentences that are so simple that annoy the heck out of me. Because it seems so convoluted, so complicated, and they make it so simple sometimes. They're like, how did you do that? Because they can see clearly. Right? That flash of light that we've lost, they still have it. And they tell us benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfection of others, and forgiveness for offenses. And I think that this really is a wonderful recipe to life. And for me, I think I've told you this before, the order in which they show up is also genius. Because what they're saying is benevolence towards everyone. Benevolence is to wishing well, having the will. That's how it starts. Do you want to? It's not intelligence. It's not ability. It's not the first thing. It's like, do you want to change and work? If you do, we'll have you. That's all it takes. So you may have 0 skills elsewhere. But if you want to, you are ready to do it. We will take you. If you want to be a part of us, we want you. If you want to be on this team, Team Humanity, Team Spiritist Society of Chicago, we'll have you. Are you smart? We don't care. Are you kind? We don't care. Are you experienced? We don't care. Are you a spirit? You're in, if you want to. That's all it takes. Then we will work towards indulgence, towards the imperfections of others. Then we will work towards tolerating people around us, because we want them to do the same. And we will do that on training grounds. And then we get that. Then we overcome all the challenges we have. But the important piece here is that it starts with the willingness to do it. And I'm going to, unfortunately, volunteer you to the team. Because if you showed up, you're in. So there is a role for you to play here. Right? And why do we do that? Why do I say all this? Because I look to Jesus, that incredible spiritual guide and model, after whom we try to shape everything else that we do in Spiritism and here at Spirit Society of Chicago too. But break the barriers. Not the Jesus that we have been fed or that we have an idea. Rediscover your own Jesus, your own Christ. Because oftentimes we get stuck on what people tell us or what people say, and we forget to look at what people do. Right? And so forget for a second on the things that we were told about Jesus and find out who's your Jesus. You might find out that it's slightly different than other people's Jesus. And it's not a competition of whose Jesus is better than other people's Jesus, right? Because that happens all the time, right? My spiritual guide is better than your spiritual guide. As if that made us better than other people. Because sometimes we want to feel better, and we do that, right? But my point here is, Jesus says a lot of things, and we heard them, and we read them, and we are exposed to them, but what did he do? And one of the things that fascinates me is that, which could be a recipe for us, is that he had a clear vision and purpose, that he built a team, and that he did the work. And that is an incredible recipe for our own lives. Do you want to make a change in your life? Do you want to have a meaningful life? Then do you have a clear vision and purpose? Do you have a team around you? Jesus could do things by himself, and yet he built a team. We cannot do things for ourselves. So why is it that we don't build a team? Why is it that we insist to do things by ourselves when the person who could actually do things by himself didn't? Isn't that curious? Right? And then do the work. We can go into details if we want to, how he did that, right? But clear vision and purpose. For I know where I come from and where I'm going, but you have no idea where I come from nor where I'm going. John. sometimes for some people, Jesus seems cocky, right? Because we are judging Jesus from our own perspective. We feel like Jesus has an ego and he's angling for something because that's what we do, right? But if you think of him as really the supreme authority on ethics for us on earth, he's just really saying, listen, I know who I am, I know what I'm going to do, but you don't know that yet of yourselves, right? So it's like, get to know yourselves, right? And then he goes, and if you do that, if you embrace the divine, because you can substitute the I that Jesus does, or me, for divinity, because he's the representative of divinity. He's the diplomat of God. So take his ego, his I out, because his I, his me, is different than ours, right? And it says, if you follow me, if you follow the divine laws, I will make you fishers of men. He's talking to the apostles when he's recruiting them in the beginning, because they were fishermen. Peter, right? He's saying, whatever it is that you're doing, if you follow the divine plan and embrace divinity, you're going to do it in a much broader scale. You will no longer fish for people, but you fish men. You help people. Isn't that beautiful? Right? And this is one of my favorite parts of the gospel, is the living fountain piece. It's in John. When he talks to the woman and says, whoever drinks of this water, the water from a fountain, right, will thirst again. Because that's what we do on earth, right? We drink water, later we get dehydrated and we want more water, right? That's a physical thing. But he goes, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him or her, the water that God gives us, shall become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. It's not even like you will be quenched forever and you never have to worry about life. It's beyond that. Is you will be quenched and you will be a model for other people and you will help other people. So if you follow the divine plan and work on yourselves, you will not only satisfy yourself, but you in turn help satisfy others. Isn't that beautiful? That points us to the certainty that we are way more than we think we are. That in us, our potential is far beyond that which we have dreamed. And to be really boring and insist on this, on the second part, to build a team piece, and this is an important piece for us because we talk about people, but sometimes we want some kind of people. We want the good ones, right? It's like, why all these crazies keep showing up in my life? Because I want them to show up ready-made. It doesn't happen, right? I mean, it didn't happen for Jesus. He sought the fishermen, which were not well-to-do, right? He sought out the tax collectors to be part of his team. And these are the people that were not loved at all because they went around getting money out of people. And who likes to pay bills and pay taxes here? Anyone? Right? Nobody does. He also sought out the people of ill repute. Right? The people who were not doing necessarily what we perceive to be socially great things. But he went to them because he recognized the divine spark in all of them, not what they were doing. Do we do the same? Right? Can we look beyond what a person is doing today and recognize that person as an immortal spirit and call them to the team? Right? And he did it in such a beautiful way and empowered people that he left and the work kept going. He didn't write a single word. And yet his words and his teachings are what we're still trying to grasp and internalize 2 millennia later. Such a powerful impact. Right? Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me, again, substitute to me, right? Whoever believes in that for which I stand, which is divine knowledge, will do everything, the works that I've been doing, and they will do even greater things than these because I am going to the Father. Can you believe it? You're going to be doing wonderful things, bigger things than he did. We can't even understand what he's done, really. And he's saying there's even more ahead of that, right? And last but not least, he did the work, right? He worked, he walked, He talked to people. He didn't stay in his comfortable carpenter house, in his comfortable carpenter chair, eating bonbons and grapes and saying, "You shall be healed. Come hither, child, I will heal you." Right? He didn't do any of that. He walked around. He did the work. He went places. He offered the best of himself. Because he says that his Father, God, is always at his work to this very day, and I too am working. Because it's also joy to work, right? So my point here is that the Spiritist group is the manifestation, is an inheritance that we are trying to do of all these ideas here on earth. It goes beyond the walls of this place. It goes beyond the hours that we come here. It just goes. And you are the fundamental piece in all of this. This place could not happen if you were not part of this. This place is here for you, and it also needs you. You are this place. These past 10 years, and remember, these numbers were numbers for 1 year of work. Don't even get started by multiplying by the number of years that you guys are doing this and how many more will be ahead. So today, as we look back and start to realize that all these incredible things that are happening here, that sometimes even ourselves who are part of the work are blind to, will continue to go on, and they have to. Because we have this inner spark in us that tells us to move forward spiritually. And when we don't, the universe pushes us to. We have no choice but to evolve. It's the most beautiful sentence we have ever been issued. We are fated to success, whether we like it or not. Sometimes we don't like it. Sometimes we want to sit down and just watch Netflix. But life calls us to everything else. So remember that. You are building something extraordinary here. You are minding people, place, and purpose. You're taking your journey of discovery through the study of Spiritism, to the reevaluation of who you are, your nature, your origin, where you come from, and where you're going to, your destiny. You're trying to understand how the spiritual world relates to this world, only to realize they are one and the same. You are doing all of this, and in the process of doing all of this, you are helping others along the way, and they are helping you, and it's gorgeous. And sometimes you don't notice because you're too close to it, because you do it every day or every week. But if you take a moment to realize, as us visitors sometimes have a chance to, because we're not here with you every day, things are changing, things are growing. There's more people coming. You need a bigger space. There's 8 activities now. You guys did some social assistance activities too that were not in that the calculation. Things are going, and there's an opportunity for everybody, and we need not wait for somebody else to do. This place needs your help. Other people that will come to this place need your help. Do you have an idea for an activity that you would like to do? Talk to the people who are here. Do you want to be part of an activity? Did you know there were 8 activities? Did you know that last year the group wrote postcards during the Christmas time to those who were struggling with mental illnesses? Do you know that you guys have been part of a book fair, that you have helped suicide prevention walks? There's so many wonderful things coming in, but it all starts and ends with you. So we celebrate 10 years of you. 10 years of growth, not only physically, because I guarantee you, 10 years ago, if you were going to tell people, one day our group's going to have a room like this, and a room with 35 people with the chairs, and whatever, I'm happy here in my garage. Probably started in a garage. Did you start in a garage? Oh, you guys don't have garages in Chicago, right? Right? Because generally it starts in somebody's garage, at least in California because we got garages, right? Or in somebody's living room, right? And then it just kind of grows. And what things in the world, to kind of wrap things up, happen this way, where you have people who are working for themselves, but for others too, for free? That is the most beautiful example of our human potential. And when you get sidetracked out there in the world and you get sucked into vortex of despair and you think that things are going to hell in a handbasket, remember, they're not. Because for as long as you keep doing the work that you're doing, and the work keeps growing in beauty and in intensity, even when everybody else thinks the world is going down the drain, you are the living proof that it's not. We're looking for an explosion of fireworks or something grandiose to tell us that something wonderful is happening. And we forget to see the everyday acts, such as coming here a little bit at a time. Sometimes our biggest victory is just making our way here because our life is so busy. Our minds are in 2 different places, and we have kids and jobs and problems, and we're like, oh, no, I can't go today. And then we come here, and we don't even realize by being here for half an hour, for an hour, our energies start to kind of get replenished. Our spiritual tanks get filled up again. And we don't even realize because we're so stuck on everything else. And that's all because you guys are like human batteries to each other. There's so much love and accomplishment here that I wish that you could see the beauty of the things that you are doing. And I cannot wait to see what the next 10 years are going to look like. It's a beautiful thing. And it's all possible because you made it possible. Take this moment to take stock. Renew your energies. See what you are part of, because the accomplishments of the group are your achievements too. All that has happened here, even when you are not here, are your achievements too, because you're here now and you can help. It's a beautiful thing, and we're so, so happy for you. We wish that we could tell you that we're proud of you, because that means we've done something, but we haven't done anything. You guys have done it. So it's such a beautiful thing to see you guys here doing these wonderful things. Amazing. 3,800 hours of instruction. More than 150 spirits helped. More than 1,800 passes. Not to count the ripple effect and everything else. It's a big deal. We're not even counting the other side. So rest assured that there is the spiritual work here. That what you're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. But the spiritual work goes on. And again, congratulations for the 10 years of bringing back the light that we deemed to have come and disappeared from the world. You are the living proof that the light is not gone. That the light is coming back. That each one of you are a light bulb of the bigger light. What a beautiful thing. What a joyous moment when we all realize the incredible impact that we have. I can only imagine how beautiful and how wonderful this world is going to be as we continue to do this work, just like you guys are doing. Congratulations. 10 years. Thank you very much for letting us be a part of this. And please rejoice for a little while. It's okay to breathe for a little while, tap yourselves on the shoulders, and realize that you are Team Humanity, that you are bringing back the light in this world. So, thank you very much. We're going to have a wonderful day full of different activities and opportunities to interact with each other. We are going to do a mini break right now, so you can stretch your legs, go to the restroom, drink some water, and when you come back, we are going to do and try something new, because you can't teach old dogs a new trick. We are going to do, not that I'm saying you're old, but you are kind of old if you think spiritually. Right? You're like really old. We're going to do a conversation. We're going to try a different thing. We're going to do a more interactive piece, and that can serve as a question and answer moment too. So thank you very much. couple of minutes for you, and then be back in a little bit. Yeah?